We're receiving quite a few PlayStation 6 related leaks, and they're pretty wild. I know it sounds early to be talking about the new PlayStation, but the rumors mill is heating up, and these leaks look substantial. The big claim manufacturing mid of 2027 and the launch late sometime in 2027, and there's a multiple models, price guesses, and even handheld that can run PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 6 games natively. Now, I want to talk and go through everything that we know so far, call out what makes sense and get your thoughts in the comments as well. Big shout out to Moore's Law's Dead for digging up some of the documents, and yeah, it's just like this is majority of information coming from him, and it's actually quite interesting stuff. Now, first of all, the leak suggests Sony is planning 3 consoles. One is the handheld, one looks like a low-cost PlayStation 6S similar to the spirits of the Xbox Series S, and one is the high-end flagship codenamed Orion. That lineup makes a lot of sense from a product standpoint: a flagship for people who want the best fidelity, a cheaper box for to pull in more players, right? And a portable for the people who want PlayStation on the go. Now, what is interesting is that the idea that the new hardware could actually be cheaper to manufacture despite being more capable. Advances in silicone and design mean Sony could build powerful machines for a lower parts cost than even the PlayStation 5 generation. A huge thread through the leaks is pricing strategy. The documents and the parts estimates in the leak point to lower manufacturing costs, and that leads to lower retailer prices, at least for certain SKUs. Now, one clear pattern: the console basically leaked that don't include a built-in disk drive. The driver is apparently about $25 parts add-on for the Sony, but leaving it out by default lowers the base price and nudges customers towards digital purchases. Sony already experimented with this on the PlayStation 5 Slim and including the PlayStation 5 Pro with its digital editions as well, and the business incentive is quite obvious. Digital sales mean bigger cuts for Sony and less reliance on a retail distribution. And according to the leak, you may still be able to buy an external disk drive, but expect the base models to be, well, basically all digital. Now, why the PlayStation 6S, right? The math here is quite straightforward. Right now, many people are still on the older PlayStation hardware. A huge slice of the install base is on the PlayStation 4, and that creates friction for the developers and for Sony's ecosystem revenue. The leaked strategy seems to be make a lower cost PlayStation 6 variant to move as many players as possible into a modern platform. Once you're on the newer hardware, you spend more on the games and services, and the developers don't have to support legacy hardware that complicates development. In short, a cheaper PlayStation 6S is a growth play and a way to align the platforms. Now, the leaks also suggests Sony is very mindful of the PlayStation 5's adoption curve. Now, there was a report that in June of 2025, PlayStation 5 monthly active users finally exceeded the PlayStation 4's, but that took several years. And meanwhile, tens of millions of players still hang on to PlayStation 4's and older consoles because many live service games continue to support older systems, and the price sensitivity for a full PS5 remains high. Sony's alleged goal with the PlayStation 6 is to accelerate that shift and get more players into the modern hardware faster, and pricing is the lever that they're betting on. Now, on the tech front, the rumors isn't exactly promising a radical jump, right, in raw power than the way PlayStation 4 to the PlayStation 5 did. Instead of the focus could be on a more of a smarter, more efficient improvement and a bigger role for software level tricks like AI upscaling and frame boosting. Now, we've already seen the idea show up on the PlayStation 5 with its PSSR technology. AI just gives that kind of illusion higher fidelity or smoother frame rates without requiring exponentially more silicon. That lets Sony deliver noticeable improvements while keeping manufacturing costs down. The Orion, the flagship, still looks like it will be the real next-gen box. High performance and a kind of a spec that justify being called the PlayStation 6 proper. But the generation's biggest headline might be a smarter software stacked rather than purely of the raw horsepower. Now, the handheld leak is one of the most interesting bits. This isn't just another streaming device like the Portal. The documents suggest a handheld that can play PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, and even the scale of the PlayStation 6 titles natively. Albeit, of course, it will be in the lower settings and the frame rate. That matters because it removes the need for studios to create separate handheld versions. If developers can target a single PlayStation platform and those games can still run on both home consoles and a handheld, studios are more likely to support it. The handheld appears to be dockable and touchscreen capable, which puts it more in line with the Switch-like flexibility than Sony's earlier experimentations. Now, if Sony sells a strong handheld that runs actual PlayStation games natively, this could be a serious competition move against the Switch 2 and Steam Deck style devices. Now, the leaks also sketched competitive price targets. One source claims that Sony is aiming to compete with Switch 2 pricing and suggests that the handheld could be surprisingly affordable relative to what it basically offers. And the PlayStation Portal showed Sony that there's a demand for portable PlayStation experiences. But Portal is more of a cloud remote device. A native hardware handheld that runs real PlayStation binaries changes the calculus. If the handhelds land kind of a reasonable price and the PlayStation 6S is cheaper than the PlayStation 5, Sony could make upgrading much easier for casual players. Now, I want to make things clear as well. This is all still just a leak, right? Treat it as a strong rumor, not confirmed fact. Moore's Law is Dead has a history of digging into the document's leads, and some of the technical details line up with industry's trends. But timing and the prices are the parts most likely to shift. The mid of 2027 manufacturing and the late of 2027 release timeline is plausible if Sony is serious about overlapping product cycles, but hardware timelines always slide. Now, there's also there are reasons, right, to be excited and reasons to be cautious. On the positive side, a lower barrier to entry would bring more players into the PlayStation ecosystem and make life easier for devs who no longer need to support a very old platform. A handheld that runs native games could expand PlayStation footprint in a way that Portal never could. On the flip side, splitting across the three SKUs, like handheld, the budget S version, and a high-end Orion, risks fragmenting the market. Now, the developers may still have to scale for the lowest a common denominator, and that could limit how ambitious flagship titles can be. And there's also a consumer backlash potential. Removing disk drives by default may anger physical media fans and of course the collectors. Now, if Sony really leans into the AI features, a stronger software layer could be the generational defining shift. Think smarter, upscaling, better frame rate, interpolation, and in-game assistance that could actually help players. Those kinds of features make the next gen feel new without forcing everyone to chase raw teraflops. In many ways, that smart hardware economics deliver meaningful improvements where players notice them and keep the price accessible. So that's it basically. There are three different sorts of rumored parts, at least the things that will be available for the PlayStation. Of course, they're all digital base, a dockable handheld that runs native games, and a pricing strategy aimed to moving to the huge PlayStation 4 install base onto the new hardware. Of course, we'll have to take this whole thing with a grain of salt. It's genuinely curious to see how far is PlayStation or Sony is willing to take things, and what kind of move will they really be making. And if that's the case, those three platforms, three consoles for 2027, presumably maybe 2028 for PlayStation, Sony, that's a big deal. And it's going to be interesting to see how it will, plan out. But nevertheless, tell me down in the comments as well, what do you think about all this? And I'll see you guys all later. Have a wonderful day.